Out last night, I'd gotten an email from somebody, one of the students in this class, saying Phillips did not have this, so I emailed my book contact person, and for some reason they canceled the order at Phillips Bookstore for just this one in this class or this set. But it is available at textbook brokers across the street on Greenland. Might even be cheaper there. I sent you a link to Amazon. The Amazon link for a new set is cheaper than it would be at Phillips, and you could get it. Today's Wednesday. You could get it tomorrow. Okay. So, having said all that, this is the first of 5. Okay, they get not necessarily progressively longer, but each book gets, how do I want to call it? Progressively meatier. That is, they develop more substance. This one's fairly light, easy reading. I'm not saying that the last one is hard and difficult reading, but there's more substance to it. There's more depth to it. Each of the books begins with an author's note. Okay, strongly encourage you. They're not very long to read each of those author's notes, and he begins this one with Chronicle of the Land of Prydain is not a retelling or retranslation of Welsh mythology. Prydain is not Wales. Not entirely, at least. That is, it's got some aspects of Wales to it. Okay, some of the characters in here are drawn from real characters of Welsh myth. It doesn't mean the characters were real. It means they're characters from real Welsh myth. Gwydion, for example, in Iran that he mentions. And then he goes on in his last paragraph. The Chronicle of Prydain, or Prydain, however you want to pronounce it, is a fantasy. Such things never happen in real life. Notice he's kind of defining for us what he, Lloyd Alexander, means by fantasy. Doesn't happen in real life. Or do they? Most of us are called on to perform tasks far beyond what we can do. Our capabilities seldom match our aspirations, and we are often woefully unprepared. To this extent, we are all assistant pig keepers at heart. Why are we assistant pig keepers? Because the central character of all 5 stories is an assistant pig keeper. Taran, T-A-R-A-N, who, in a later novel, is going to get a last name added to him. And that last name will be Wanderer, because he doesn't know what his real last name is. He doesn't know who his parents are. Shut up. Almost, well, I did give it away. He never finds out who his real parents are, even though he looks and looks and looks. So, it's a fantasy. Such things never happen in real life. We talked a little bit the other day about fantasy. We talked about Little Red Riding Hood, monsters, etc., etc. Are there big bad wolves out that, eat little girls? Well, maybe not literal wolves, but are there wolves in our society? Yeah, I mentioned the story of one who lived down the street from me, And there are all kinds of others that we could talk about. I just saw a thing this morning, and I don't remember the guy's name. He's older. He hasn't been playing baseball in a long time. But a former Major League Baseball MVP Player of the Year, arrested in Dallas for continual, not just once, continual sexual assault on a 4-year-old. That's a wolf. That's a monster. Might not have horns and claws, but that's about as monstrous as you can get. So, fantasy? Yeah. So, why does an author choose to write in Prydain rather than Lloyd Alexander's from Philadelphia? Rather than Philadelphia. Why does he set his novel, series of novels, in Prydain rather than Philadelphia or the United States or San Francisco, Murfreesboro, etc. Why does J.R.R. Tolkien set his world set his tale in Middle Earth? Why did George Lucas set his world in a galaxy a long time ago? Why not here? Why not now?
It's too realistic.
Which is too realistic?
Here.
Here and now? Okay. Is that more realistic than what happens often in fantasy?
It allows us to remove ourselves from where we are now and imagine that place.
Okay. It gives us what Tolkien calls kind of that escape of the problems we're facing right here, right now. Hunger, poverty, hatred, anger, injustice, racism, prejudice, etc. And yet, if you read much fantasy literature, what do you find happens in those worlds? Look at Harry Potter, for example. How many of you have read any of the Harry Potter novels? A couple of you, a few of you have. What is one of the central problems in Harry Potter? Think of the Malfoys, and then kind of think everybody else. Or the Malfoys and Lord Voldemort and their followers, and Harry and Hagrid and Ron and such. Well, if you don't meet their standards, and their standards being, Malfoy's especially, good blood, pure blood, you're what? You're nothing. Okay? So you have those exact same problems that we have in our world, in the real world, our real experience, set someplace else. Why? I thought the purpose was to escape from all of that, to get away from all of that. Keep going. You're right. We can relate to it.
I mean, in that setting specifically, the good guy wins. It eventually defeats the problem.
Do the good guys always win? Or let me put it this way. Do the good guys, quote unquote, always get what they want out of life? No. If you're familiar with The Lord of the Rings, what does Frodo Baggins get at the end of The Lord of the Rings? The ring gets destroyed. Frodo goes back home to live the Disney, and they all lived happily ever after. Right? No. Frodo goes home and discovers what? You can't go home. Why? Well, he's been off on a journey for a year. During that journey, multiple things have happened to him. What happened to Frodo because of that journey? He's no longer the Frodo who stepped out the door a year earlier. He is a different, changed, transformed Frodo. Okay? That's an otherworld fantasy setting. Let's look at that in a real world setting. But we'll take it outside our time frame. We'll go back a few years. 1917. Or January 1942. You're an 18-year-old American male. What's going to happen to you? Almost certainly in January or the first half of 1942. You're going to get drafted. You're going to get drafted to do what? Go to war. Where? Either in the Pacific or in Germany. What have the Germans done to us as of that point? Nothing really, but they were allied with Japan. Okay. So you're an 18-year-old farm boy from Kansas. The biggest town you've ever lived in is 1,000 people. And you go off, you get shipped off first to London. 5 million people. And then you go off to France. And you fight in the fields of France. Or you go off to, like ex-Senator Bob Dole, who was a farm boy from Kansas, essentially, and went off and fought in Anzio in Italy. Okay, got shot up every which way. what does that do to you when you then go back home? You're not the same person. You've experienced things in an ideal world that no one should ever have to experience. Okay? So, the fantasy world setting allows us, or allows those who've never experienced that kind of change, okay, to do what? To experience it. Do we experience it physically in our bodies? If you read The Lord of the Rings, when you get to the very end of The Lord of the Rings, Frodo's getting ready to go off to the Grey Havens or go off to Valinor, etc., with Gandalf and all the others, and he's missing a finger because it got bit off, and he's been bitten on the neck, and he's been stabbed in the shoulder. We haven't been bitten in the neck, stabbed in the shoulder, and we don't finish the book with a finger missing. But we can still experience that through him. Okay? Just as we can experience what Taryn experiences here. Now, what do we have to do in order for that to happen, though? Do you have to kind of mentally say, as you open the book, I am starting chapter 1, the book of 3, the assistant pig keeper. I am no longer who I am. Brain, shut off. I am not Dr. Ted Sherman. I am not 57. I am, we don't know how old he is. He's pretty young, 11, 12, I would say 13 at the absolute max. Okay? And I am no longer, somebody who lived in quote-unquote Western civilization, 4,000 years of history, culture, art, etc. But I now live on a little crap hole farm in the middle of nowhere. And woohoo, I get to be an assistant pig keeper. How big of a job title is pig keeper? Really? That's what you want to strive for? But you get to be the assistant pig keeper? Okay? So how do you have to begin that? Do you have to shut off everything that you know? Do you have to, remove those lenses that I was talking about the other day? Take those off, so to speak? Well, maybe to some extent, yes. Maybe to some extent you start this and you try to say, okay, I'm not going to read this from XYZ perspective. That is, I'm not going to try to read it necessarily as a middle-aged white American male born into blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to what? C.S. Lewis said, the mark of a good reader, there's more than one. One, you reread what you've read before. That is, you don't just read something once and go, oh, I've read it. Right? He also says it's the mark of a good book. It's something you want to read again. But the real mark of a good reader is not someone who reads, say, a book like this, for what information it can give. What information can this book give you about life in 2019 America? None. None. It will not give you any bit of information about 2019 or America or the Western Hemisphere or our world per se. Not information. So why do you read them? Because you let the book do what a book is designed to do. That is, a book is like food. It's like water. You take it in. What happens if you don't drink water? Eventually you die, right? Well, what happens before you die? You get thirsty. You get dried out. Lewis argued that books kind of have the same function as water or food. They feed you. They don't feed you in the sense that food feeds you. They feed you in the sense that food enables your body to go through a variety of processes. That is, it converts food to nutrients that it can use. Books do the same thing, but they do it via the mind. That is, just as food changes you. You need proof? Change your diet completely. Say you're a vegan. Go all meat. See what's going to happen. Say you're, red-blooded meat eater. Go vegan. Say go all McDonald's. Go all something else. And what's going to happen? Your body's going to go, whoa. Same things with books. That is, books are designed to be taken in to allow the book to do whatever it is the author wants the book to do. Okay? That is, the author's trying to tell you something. It doesn't mean you have to read it and at every sentence go, but what does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? How does a book mean? It's the totality of the book, and sometimes you won't know, quote unquote, what the book means till a long time after. Because when you take this inside, when you read it, there will be parts of it that'll just kind of park themselves in your, let's call it, your kind of active yet resting memory. That is, it's active, it's being retained, and yet you're not consciously thinking about it. But it's just going to sit there and it's going to be like water moving through coffee grounds. It's going to percolate. And at some point, there will be something, either in here or another book you read, that the proverbial light bulb is going to go on and you're going to go, that's what that meant. Why? Because there will be an experience in your life that will mimic or be similar to. Okay? So, what Alexander is doing here is he's kind of telling all of us, go back to early in your life. When you're 11, 12, 13, and you start to have an idea, what do I want to be when I grow up? Well, what does Taryn want to be when he grows up? First chapter, he tells us. He wanted to make a sword. Now, why would you want to make a sword? Louder.
Fight.
To fight, to use. What kind of people use swords? Heroes. He wants to be a hero. Why does he want to be a hero? What do heroes have going for them that cowards don't? Or that losers don't, if you want. What's so good about being a hero? Fame, love. Okay. Says who? Who says that's what a hero wants? Who says that's what a hero gets? Okay. Taryn thinks that. Look at the first chapter. Taryn wanted to make a sword, but Call, charged with the practical side of his education, decided on horseshoes. Why are horseshoes more practical than a sword? Where does he live? On a farm. Have a lot of use for a sword on a farm? Is a chicken going to attack you? Probably not. Some roosters can get pretty mean, okay? But you kick them and they run away. You don't need a sword for that. Horseshoes, however, can be very useful if you have a horse. Notice, it's the practical side of his education. It's not the theoretical side. And so it had been horseshoes all morning long. So what does that mean all morning long? What have they been doing? This is, you got to read a little bit into it. If it's been horseshoes all morning long, then Call and Taryn have been sitting there at the forge and the anvil, heating up iron and trying to pound it into shape. What is Call, meanwhile, trying to do to Taryn? Taryn is like that irresistible iron. He's trying to bend him into shape. That's what education is. Okay? The E here is that X that I talked about the other day. It's like this, out of, away from. The ducation, that's just the ending that means the word's been turned into a noun. This from is ducare. It means to lead. It's to lead out. Okay? So what do you do when you receive an education? It's kind of like you're led out of yourself. That is, you're trained to do something or to be something. So, why? Why horseshoes, Taryn asks. As if we had any horses. Call. Lucky for the horses, as he looks at Taryn's horseshoe. It's a piece of garbage. I could do better at making a sword. I know I could. And so he snatches the tongs. He pulls a piece of iron out of the forge and starts banging it. And stop, Call says. That's not the way to go after it. Okay, so when Call says that's not the way to go after it, what is implied in those words? If you're going to make a sword, okay, that's not the way to do it. What does that's not the way to do it really mean?
He knows how to do it.
I know how to make a sword, kid. What you're doing isn't going to result in a sword. Okay? This is kind of important, and it's a little bit of foreshadowing for some stuff that comes up later. Heedless of Call, Taryn pounds harder and harder and harder. The metal twists, buckles. The iron sprang from the tongs, fell to the ground. Taryn stared at it, and he picks it up, and it's all bent. Not quite the blade for a hero. In other words, you're not going to do much heroic stuff with that. Taryn, it's ruined. It looks like a sick snake. I tried telling you, you had it all wrong. You must hold the tongs. And so he starts to do what? He starts to teach him. You want to make a sword, boy? This is how you have to make a sword. You have to hold the tongs a certain way. You've got to hold the metal a certain way. You have to make sure the strength flows from your shoulder. Your wrist must be loose, because he's probably sitting here doing this, whereas you want the motion to be coming down like this. Okay? So what's this telling us? If Taryn really wants to make a sword, what should he do? Listen to Call. Okay? I wish I could have my own sword, and you would teach me sword fighting. Why would you want to know that? We have no battles at Caradalbin. Really? Sounds to me like they just had a battle. Not one in a physical sense. Okay? But it is a battle. We don't have any horses either, but we're making horseshoes. Come on. That is for practice. Why practice? Why practice on horseshoes rather than on swords? What's he trying to teach Taryn? Is it really about making horseshoes, folks? No, it's not. What's he really trying to teach him? At least one thing. Patience. Patience. Okay? Is a horseshoe going to be practical? No, they don't have any horses. We've been told. Even Call acknowledges we don't have any horses. You don't need any horses. But guess what? Once you master the art of the horseshoe, then what can be done with that horseshoe? Throw it back in the forge. Let it get soft, and then what? Then maybe we can work on something else. So what's he getting at? He's not getting at the actual product made, but the process of achieving that. That is, Taryn, you want to be a hero. What does that mean? How do you be a hero? By going out and killing something? Killing somebody? Swinging a sword? No, it's a process. It starts how? The first step. What's the first step? Whatever the first step is, okay? Maybe it's the first step out the door and such. So, he says, come on, teach me. You must know the art. He says, true, I've held a sword once or twice. Come on, teach me now. I know most of it. So, Call tells him how to hold a sword. If you were to come against me like that, with all you posing and bouncing, I'd chop you into bits, etc., etc. Taryn picks up a poker and such. Right? They stop because their boss comes in, Dalbin, who we're told is the master of Care Dalbin. Care is a Celtic word, and it essentially means what's the word I want? It's not home. It's the difference between home and fortress, dwelling. Okay, the dwelling called Dalbin. That is kind of, this is where Dalbin dwells. All right, so Dalbin comes in and he's, like, you guys are wasting your time. Stop that nonsense. Call says it's my fault. Skip a little page. Skip a little bit. Page 6. Dalbin tells them that the Horned King is in the area. Now, do we know anything about the Horned King? Nope. It's the first time he's been referred to. But Taryn, the Horned King, that tells us Taryn knows, or at least has heard, something about who this Horned King is. We'll talk about him later. And he pulls out this big, massive book called the Book of Three. And he says, as I've explained to you before, bottom of page 6, and you have very likely forgotten, Prydain is a land of many contrevs, small kingdoms, many kings. And if you look at the map here, which in later books, the map gets a little bit expanded. You've got Caer Dallben over here. Okay. You've got Anubin, which is where Iran kind of rules. Spiral Castle. Okay. There are what are called cantrevs. Think of them as counties, if you want. All over. And each of these counties has its own, separate chieftain, king, in some instances. Okay? So, Dalbin goes on, he's teaching him, and Terence says, yeah, but there's one high king over all of them, right? Math, son of Mathanawi, his war leaders, the Midas hero and Prydain, Prince Gwydion, Math, Gwydion, these are characters straight from out of Will Smith. Okay? He says, yes, but there are other things you don't know, and for reasons I haven't told you. Okay? So, Dalbin goes on and talks about Iran and that Iran is not king of all of Prydain. Dalbin says you should be glad about that. And bottom of page 7, he says he would have ruled had it not been for the children of Dawn, the sons of the Lady Dawn and her consort Balin, king of the sun. Long ago they voyaged to Prydain from the summer country, and found the land rich and fair, though the race of men had little for themselves. They built their stronghold at Caer Dathel, far north in the Eagle Mountains. From there they helped regain at least a portion of what Iran had stolen. So, notice, sometime, it appears, in the distant past, Iran had nearly conquered Prydain, and these people come from another land. And we would say they invade. Okay? They come from another land called the Summer Country. And they do battle against Iran, and they kind of confine him. They push him back. They become kings themselves. Okay? So, page 8, I'm skipping a bit more. We find out that the current High King, Math, is descended from the House of Dawn. That is, he's descended from those people who came from that foreign country. So is Prince Gwydion. Okay? But that's really all you need to know. Prydain has been at peace until now. Here's what you don't know, and Dalbin gives them a little more information. It has reached my ears that a new mighty warlord has risen, as powerful as Gwydion. That is, the Horned King. No man knows his name, nor has any man seen his face. He wears an antlered mask, and for this reason he's called the Horned King. He says, I think he's working for Iran, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So, he says, because of what I've just told you, let's say this is the confines of Caer Dalbin. I don't want you going outside the fence. I don't want you leaving this area. Why? Because the Horned King might be lurking outside. Fairy tale aspect, right? Don't leave your neighborhood. Don't leave your house. Why? The big bad wolf might get you. So, Taryn says, for the time being, I think it will always be for the time being. Bottom of page 8. And it will be vegetables and horseshoes all my life. In other words, Taryn's kind of going, you're just telling me you want me to stay here and be a good little boy so I don't get in trouble. Dalbin, there are worse things. Worse things than what? Vegetables and horseshoes all your life. Well, what would be worse than vegetables and horseshoes? Would a good steak every now and then be worse? No, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about tending the garden. So what would be worse than that? How about having to kill? Do you set yourself to be a glorious hero? Do you believe it is all flashing swords and galloping about on horses? As for being glorious, Taryn yeah, but what about Prince Gwydion? He's a hero. He's got a mighty sword. He's got a mighty horse. What does Taryn think a hero is or does? We're going to get a pretty good indication, I think, in the very next chapter. He almost thinks of a hero as like almost somebody who, I'll use Jesus as a moment, walks on water, who floats above the ground. Because he's going to meet Prince Gwydion. And we're going to be told some things about Taryn as a result of that meeting. Okay? Taryn says, top of page 9, yes, I wish I might be like Prince Gwydion. Dalbin, I fear that is entirely out of the question. Why? What do you have to do to be a prince? Be born into the family. It's your blood. You don't do anything to become a prince, You save somebody's life, and a king doesn't go, oh, well done, I think I'll make you a prince. You are either born royal or you are not. So, that's out of the question. But why? I know if I had the chance. What's Taryn thinking? I could be it. In some cases, Dalbin interrupts him, we learn more by looking for the answer to a question and not finding it than we do from learning the answer itself. What? Translate that to a real-world problem. How does the scientific method work? What do you start with in a science problem? Yes, you have a problem. And so you come up with a hypothesis. And then what do? You test it. Sometimes what happens when you test your hypothesis?
It's not true.
You're wrong. Okay? Does that mean that was a waste of time? No. Because what does that do? That removes from consideration that possibility. Okay? Why is Carl having Taryn work on making horseshoes? It's kind of like a hypothesis. He's got to practice. He makes one, nope, that's no good. That's a bad hypothesis. He works at it. He refines it. Okay? So, Dalbin, we learn more by looking for the answer to a question and not finding it than we do from learning the answer itself. You know, what's the old adage? If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for life. Okay, so if you give a guy a fish and he's hungry, what do? You solve that hunger problem. You teach him something to earn his or her bread or own keep. And what do? You solve the hunger problem permanently. Okay? Have you solved the immediate problem of the hunger? Well, not necessarily. Because if you teach him how to fish, what does he then have to do before his belly is full? He's got to go out and catch a fish. This is one of these cases. That is, Taryn, I want to be a prince. I want to be a hero. If I only had the chance. What's Taryn what to jump to? The end of the process. He doesn't want to go through the effort it takes to achieve that process. How many of you have ever tried, to do something athletically, artistically, creatively? Write a song, paint a portrait, do some athletic event. I used to pole vault when I was in high school, first couple of years of college. Wasn't very good. I could get to 13 feet, I think was the highest I did. But there were people doing 16, 17 feet. World-class people were doing 19 and 20 feet. Okay? Nobody in here is Michael Jordan. Nobody in here is going to ever play basketball like Michael Jordan did. Nobody in here is Usain Bolt. Nobody in here is going to run 100 meters in, 8.9 seconds? Okay? But did Usain Bolt, the first time he put on his spikes, run that fast? Nope. What did it take? Horseshoes. It took horseshoes before he could attain that sword. So, this is one of those cases. I could tell you why, but at the moment it would only be more confusing. In other words, I could tell you the answer you want, but it wouldn't help you. In the first Harry Potter novel, at the end of the Harry Potter novel, Harry asks Professor Dumbledore, why did Lord Voldemort want to get me in the first place? And he says, sorry, I can't answer that question now. I'll tell you later when you're older. Okay? Later on, when he is a little bit older, and Dumbledore tells him, he says, okay, I see now, I should have told you then. Okay? But I still don't think you were ready for it then. Dalbin goes on. If you grow up with any kind of sense, which, you sometimes make me doubt, you will very likely reach your own conclusions. That is, what's the best way to learn? Experience? Make mistakes? Finding out for yourself? Rather than just having it all laid out for you. Taryn, but they'll probably be wrong. That is, the answers I find won't be the right answers. How many right answers are there in quote unquote major life decisions you have to make? Some of you are shaking your heads. How many of you already have a chosen declared major? Most of you do. Okay? The odds are pretty good that you might change that major in the next year or two. How many of you already have a chosen, younger you, chosen career that you want to go into? On average, the average American goes through 7 career changes in a lifetime. Not change from, one supervisory role to another. Career change, like teacher to cop to engineer to pilot, those kinds of, just totally different. Okay? So how do you know which one's right? How do you know your choice of major now is the right choice? Well, guess what? There isn't a wrong choice. But Taryn thinks all those decisions only have one right choice. Or those conclusions that he calls them. They'll probably be wrong. However, since Dobbin says this, they'll probably be wrong. However, since they will be yours, you will feel a little more satisfied with them. That is, you will feel more satisfied with the conclusions you draw, you reach, than with those somebody else gives you. I bet there's not a single person in this room who likes to be told what to do, or necessarily how to do something. Every now and then, my wife and I will get in a car, we'll be going somewhere, and I'll do something, and she'll kind of go, ah! She's being facetious, but she's essentially commenting on my driving, okay? And I'm like, shut up. I'm driving, I'll drive. When you drive, you drive, okay? It's my way of driving, etc. Now, if I get in a wreck, obviously that's something different, okay? So, Dalbin falls asleep. Taryn reaches for the book of 3, burns his hands. Why? Is it a poisonous book? Has Dalbin, been taking an antidote so he's not hurt by it? We don't know yet. We will find out by the end of the final book. So, Dalbin wakes up, tells Taryn, go talk to Call, get some lotion for those hands. And we get to the bottom of page 10, and Call says, you've been at the book of 3, now you know not to do that, etc., etc. So, again, because he realizes Taryn wants to be more than what he is, Call gives him a title. He says, I shall make you something. From this moment you are Taryn, assistant pig keeper. You shall help me take care of Henwin. He's like, but I already do that. He goes, yeah, but now you have a title to it. Okay? All the better, for it makes things that much easier. If you want to be something with a name attached to it, I can't think of anything closer to hand. What does he mean? If you want to be something, how do you become that something? You work for it. How do you work for it? You start with the very next thing. The very next thing that's required. You're an accounting major. What do you have to do to get that degree that says you're an accounting major? You got to pass this class. Or if you don't pass this one, another one like this. Why? It's general education. And then what else? You get out all your gen ed courses, and you get all courses in your major. Each one of those, you got to pass. You can think of those as hoops. You got to jump through the hoop like a trained horse, so that you can get out into the quote-unquote real world and make swords rather than horseshoes. Okay? So, Terran goes off after Hinwin when Hinwin gets out through the fence. Chapter 2. Let's see here. He sees the Horned King. He sees the Horned King's men, his troops. Terran hides. And let's see here. On page 16, he gets up, and we're told, he wakes up, I should say. Terran opened his eyes. He was lying on a stretch of turf with a cloak thrown over him. One shoulder smarted painfully. A man knelt beside him. The man tells him, drink. Stranger has shaggy, gray-streaked hair. Tells him to drink again. He says, you look as though I were trying to poison you. It is not thus that Gwydion, son of Dawn, deals with the wounded. And Terran's like, you're not Gwydion. You can't be Gwydion. Why? How does he look? Old. Okay? Gray-streaked hair. How else does he look?
Buddy.
Muddy. You're not Gwydion. I know of him. I know of him, he says. He doesn't say, I know him. He is a great war hero, leader, a hero. He's not. And he looks at the big sword. The golden pommel was smooth and rounded, pattern of leaves. It was truly the weapon of a prince. Terran dropped to a knee and says, I did not intend. In other words, sorry. He still stared in disbelief at the, and now we're told, simple attire and the worn, lined face. From all Dalbin had told him of this glorious hero, from all he had pictured to himself, Terran bit his lips. Notice the important part of that is what he had pictured Gwydion as. Did Dalbin say he rides around on a beautiful horse in freshly laundered clothing all the time and never looks like he lacks sleep? No, he hadn't said that. Gwydion looks at him and says, it is not the trappings that make the prince, nor indeed the sword that makes the warrior. Come on, who are you? What are you doing here? I saw the Horned King. His men rode. I saw him. Dalbin told me. Who are you? Who are you to speak of Dalbin? Now, what does Terran know of Dalbin? He was raised by him. What else does he know of him? Nothing. Notice what Gwydion's comment suggests. Who are you to speak of Dalbin? That kind of says, Dalbin's way up here, you know, slop a pig every day. You shouldn't even be using this guy's name. He says, I am Terran of Caer Dalbin. Oh, Gwydion says, okay. So why aren't you at home? I went off after Hinwin and we fled. Have we been told much about Hinwin at this point? Magical pig, but really nothing else. Okay? So, they keep talking. Gwydion says, I need information that Hinwin has. Talking pig, I don't know. He says, Hinwin sensed the Horned King and fled Caer Dalbin. Terran, then we should stop him, attack him, strike him down. Whoa. Gently, in other words, back up. Hold your horses there, buddy. Terran, I would not fear him. He drew himself up. Again, 11, 12, 13 years old. Gwydion, then you're a fool. Why? Because he'd easily kill you. He is the man most to be dreaded in all Prydain. Okay? They keep talking, and Gwydion weaves some grass leaves into this little webbing kind of thing. And Terran's like, well, that's cool. And while they're doing this, Gwydion keeps talking and tells Terran about Aran and what Aran is doing. How he is, if you think of those cantrevs, how he is kind of reaching out and co-opting, if you want, sucking in the leaders, the chieftains, the kings, so that they are aligning themselves with him. What Gwydion is saying is, we're getting prepared for a mighty battle. It's going to be a world war of sorts, okay? And that's why he needs Hinwen. Page 20. I know we've only got a couple minutes. Terrence says, yeah, but what about me? Because Gwydion says, I got to go off after the Horn King. What about me? I'm the one who let her escape. I should be the one who find her. Task counts more than one who does it, says Gwydion. I will not be hindered by an assistant pig keeper who seems eager to bring himself to grief. And others, you'll just slow me down, and you are hell-bent to get yourself hurt. He says, wait, second thought, fine. I can't send you back alone. I dare not go with you. Therefore, you have to come with me. I won't stop you. I won't slow you down. Let me go with you. Dalbin and Call will see I can do what I set out to do. But what has he set out to do? I want to be a hero. All right? Gwydion, have I another choice? In other words, I can't do anything else. It would seem, Terran of Caradalbin, we follow the same path for a little while at least. In other words, it would seem that your life path now has met up with mine, and we have to go on the same path for a while. All right? Jump to 21, and I'll go real quickly. Gwydion asks, how long have you been with Dalbin? Who are your kinsmen? Don't know. I don't even know who I am. He says, well, that's something we must all discover for ourselves. Yeah, but Gwydion knows who he is. He's Gwydion, son of Math. But does that really answer the question of who he really is? So he says, is there a destiny laid on me that an assistant pig keeper should help me in my quest? Or is it the other way around? Well, what's Terran's quest? According to the way Gwydion has just proposed it. That's what Terran thinks it is when he leaves Caradalbin. Just before this, Terran says, I don't know who I am. Gwydion turns that into his quest. Who are you, Terran of Caradalbin? Is it destiny for you to aid me on my quest, or is it destiny for me to help you on your quest? Okay, we'll stop there, and we'll move more quickly on Friday.